Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Dan Deniska, Assistant City Planner. Just going to read a few ground rules before I turn it over to Frank to start the meeting. This is a web-based meeting, so we're operating under the following procedures. The session is being audio recorded, just like every other POCD PIC meeting. Please be advised that today we're also recording a video of the proceeding. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is everyone should remain on mute unless they're going to speak. Staff and other members of the committee should remain on mute, except when speaking or voting. Members of the public should have their video off. We don't have any public hearings. If you're speaking about anything at the meeting and I didn't receive it ahead of time, you're going to need to describe it and then email it to me after the fact so I can add it to the public record folder on the website. And members of the public could only speak during an open public hearing, which we don't have as part of this. So we shouldn't have to worry about that tonight. With that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Frank, to open the meeting.
All right, thank you, Dan. So I guess the first thing we have to do is introduce ourselves. I'm Frank Manfredi, the chairman of the Commission on City Plan. Dan Deniska is our assistant city planner, and he's basically hosting the meeting and taking care of all the technical aspects of it. Les King is here from the city plan also. I guess Jeff Stedman is on audio, and it looks like there's a couple of other people. Do you know who they are, Dan?
I don't. Well, one is Tucker Braddock from the Harbor
Tucker
Commission.
Is on. Yep.
And
yes,
there's one other phone number that I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, this is Mark Betancourt.
Okay.
Okay, Mark. So we have Mark on also. So welcome everybody to the meeting of the Plan of Conservation and Development Implementation Committee for today, July 8th, 2020. We do have a part of the agenda to approve minutes from the May 13th meeting. It would be good if we could get somebody to make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion. Tucker Braddock.
Yeah, this is Les King. I'll second the motion.
Okay, so a motion by Tucker, second by Les. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. The meeting minutes from May 13th, 2020 are approved. We have no old business that I can see on the agenda. And the new business is to review and discuss the chapter on leverage assets and protecting natural resources. And I'm going to let Dan kind of take it from here then.
So tonight, mainly to cover all of these sections, we have a presentation that Jeff's going to speak to. So I can call that up. I do have the pages from the POCD and the implementation guide if we want to run through those after the fact. But I think we should do, in the interest of time, we can get right into the presentation if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, Dan. So if we can get that up on the on the computer and have Jeff address it.
thank you.
Hi, Jeff. Does everybody know Jeff Stedman, who's on at the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so Jeff, if you just want to quickly introduce yourself, I'd appreciate that.
Thanks, Frank. And again, thanks to the City of Norwich for having me work for the city since, I guess, going back to 1991 when we started work on the harbor management plan at that time. Mr. Aliano was chair, and then subsequent to that, I've had the good fortune to work on other projects for the city as well, including the Walk Norwich project and Frank and the Walter Ruley project. Just looking at this quickly, I don't have it on my screen. That's the problem. If the presentation is on the screen, then I can, Dan, just maybe alert you when to change the.
Sure.
And the reason we're doing this is because the Harbor Management Commission is updating the Harbor Management Plan, which is a I guess you'd call it a companion document or a complementary document with the POCD. And the two plans intersect on the waterfront. So the Harbor Commission prepared this presentation, which we've given over the last couple of years and updated to highlight, I think it's fair to say, that the wonderful opportunities associated with Norwich Harbor and the Three Rivers, and opportunities for public access and waterfront development and environmental enhancement. So Dan, if we could go maybe to the next slide.
Sure.
And I know we know where we are, of course, but one of the significant institutional things, I guess you want to say, about Norwich's location at the head of the Thames River is it's part of the coastal area of the state of Connecticut. So use and development of the waterfront is subject to the policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, and of course that's a major consideration in the POCD. The next slide, Dan, and I'll try to go through this quickly, and if I'm taking too long, just tell me to go faster. But the harbor management area, the jurisdiction of the plan and of the commission, Harbor Commission, is all of from the Montville-Preston line up to the base of the Antic Falls and up to the base of the Greenville Dam on the Shetucket River. So that's what we call the harbor management area, where the policies of the harbor management plan apply. And on this drawing, you can see sort of the rough sketch of the Federal Navigation Channel in the Thames River. And when the Harbor Commission was formed in 1991, one of the issues, the important issues that had to be addressed, was to modify the boundaries of that navigation channel, which is known as a turning basin, to enable the building out of the south docks at the American Wharf Marina, and also actually to get the Brown Park docks out of the navigation channel. The next slide, Dan, and quickly, just a couple of the major features or areas of interest of the harbor management area. And the plan talks about the rich history of Norwich, of course, and the image you see on the left of this screen, the historic Norwich waterfront. The Harbor Commission received a grant some years ago to prepare interpretive panels, similar to the Ruley panels and also the Walk Norwich panels. And this one on the historic Norwich waterfront is on the public walkway along the Antic River, just north of Brown Park. Dan, the next slide. And of course, the park's significance, and this is one of the opportunity areas that we want to talk about later. The park's significance, of course, besides being the principal point of public access, is the proximity to the downtown and the walking distance to the park from the downtown. The next slide, Dan, quickly, and the Antic River and Falls, of course, is a historic resource of great significance. The drawing in the lower right is a conceptual dredging plan that the Harbor Commission prepared some years ago, thinking if there's a way of dredging a shallow channel that would allow boats to get up to the base of the falls at all tides as a tourism and public access opportunity. The next slide, Dan, shows another grant that the Harbor Commission obtained a few years ago, was to provide information and lay out the water trail for paddlers. Again, as a tourism initiative to attract people or hopefully encourage people to come to Norwich. So we prepared pamphlets and designed the trail, and on the lower right you can see the sign for the trail that's down near the boat launching ramp. The next slide, Dan, of course, the American Wharf Marina, which was this was built before I got involved in '91, but this was the cornerstone, or is the cornerstone of the city's plans for economic development and revitalization on the waterfront. And the future of this, of course, is a very important consideration. And then the authorities, the next slide, Dan, the reason that the city has prepared the plan, or the authorities for preparing it, comes from the state enabling legislation, And then the city code chapter, again, it passed in 1991 to establish the Harbor Management Commission. And the commission then prepared the Harbor Management Plan. The next slide, Dan. And again, kick me if I'm going too slow or talking too much, but the plan, as I said, is essentially a water use plan. It interacts with the POCD on the waterfront, and it has goals and policies and recommendations for specific areas. So it's 24 years now since the plan was adopted, and it served the city well because the policies are all still relevant and applicable. It's the recommendations for specific areas that need updating and modification. The next slide, Dan, just go quickly. The goals, I mean, the principal goals are safety, protect the environment, and beneficial use of the waterfront and the water. And along with that comes public access and encouraging public support and the benefits to be sustainable. So those goals and policies, the commission has gone over them and has prepared a pretty good revision, but no major changes, just updating them and using the current regulatory language. The next slide, Dan, the recommendations for specific areas. And these have to do with redevelopment, public access, protecting coastal resources, and I'll mention that briefly as we go on. And the next slide is the plan includes responsibilities for implementation. And it's from the mayor and the city council and all commission on the city plan, the harbor master, the state agencies, and private groups. The goal is that with the goal that all of these groups, all the agencies and groups that have an interest in the harbor would function as, in effect, as stewards to conduct their activities in a way that helps advance the plan's goals. The benefits of the plan, the next slide, and besides, setting the vision and increasing coordination, we hope, but the first point, strengthening the city's role for managing in-water and waterfront activities. In effect, that was why I think that the council passed the ordinance back in '91. And Dan, the next slide maybe. And it's in large part to strengthen home rule because of the statute, the general statute that says that a recommendation by the Harbor Management Commission that's consistent and supported by the plan is to be binding on state decisions, permitting decisions and other decisions, unless the state can show cause otherwise. But that's what we think is one of and that's why all the other towns in Connecticut, there's 26 harbor management plans. That's pretty much why they're all have prepared plans too, not to eliminate the state and the federal government, but to increase local authority and responsibility relative to the state. Now I'm getting to the end here and what the important things we wanted to talk about. This waterfront vision that we've talked about, it's part of the plan. It's part of the plan's goals, but we also prepared some years ago a separate document that we call the Waterfront Vision. And we did that in a group that involved a representative from NCDC, from the Redevelopment Agency, from the Planning Department, and from some other agencies that I can't remember. And it was essentially a theme, a smaller document, not to replace the plan, but that would list priorities and that we would try to work together to achieve. And that vision was I don't know if it was accepted or endorsed by the city council, not adopted, because it's essentially, what's in the harbor management plan. But one of the first parts of the waterfront vision principles was redevelopment of underutilized properties on the waterfront. And that we're going to get to in just a second to talking about the Shipping Street area and the New Wharf area. And economic growth and development, because the harbor plan in Norwich is different than other towns where they have boat moorings and many marinas. And here we're talking primarily about public access, waterfront redevelopment, and protecting environmental quality. and encouraging tourism. So just go quickly through that we had elements of this vision that we used as sort of a promotional tool for promoting the harbor management plan and public interest in it. The next slide, Dan, is the waterfront vision continued. And then the slide after that, where we identify several opportunity areas. And where there are opportunities for doing things that will help us achieve the vision. And you know what all those sites are, and they're shown on that drawing with the yellow stars. And then now I'm almost finished here, the priorities. And the next slide is the five priorities in 2020. And I think the first one is replacing the public docks at Brown Park and finding a new spot if we can for a bigger and better layout for a boat launching facility. And number three, which we want to talk with you briefly about and hopefully set up a means for dealing with this in the near future. What's the new vision for the Shipping Street area and the New Wharf area that are in the floodway now, as designated by FEMA, and they weren't when we first prepared the plan. And we want to promote the harbor as a regional fishing destination that goes in with a new location for the boat launching facility in part. And we want to finish the update of the harbor management plan. So the next slide, Dan, the Brown Park docks and the boat launch. You can see the public docks on the photo on the left. The Harbor Commission used its budget to renew the permit, to get a new permit to be able to replace those docks. Hired an engineer to assess the costs and applied for a grant from the Connecticut Port Authority to replace the docks, and the City Council also authorized the cost share. Now, unfortunately, the Connecticut Port Authority has had some issues, and currently they're not authorized to seek state bonded funds, although they have accepted and approved the grant application that the Commission has accepted. So that's something that we need to. I don't know how we deal with that and to get the Port Authority to have the governor or the legislature, of course money is tight now, be able to request the funds for implementing that project that's been approved by the Port Authority. And you can also see the boat launching ramp and the limited parking and how well, you can envision how trailers park along the street. And now this next slide, the new visions for these two properties. This is one of the questions that's, I guess you might say, not holding up, but that we need to address to complete the update to the harbor management plan. Historically, or in the recent past, the vision was multi-use redevelopment of these properties. Now, with the floodway designation, that's problematic. So we were hoping that we could work with the Commission on the City Plan to develop new visions for these properties that would be incorporated into both the POCD and the harbor management plan. And that's one of the things we hope to come away with a sort of an approach to working with you after this meeting today. And then the next slide, well, this is sort of an ongoing process promoting the harbor for recreational fishing. And there's another one of our interpretive signs. It's still down at Brown Park, but the image on the left, the sign that's there now is the water trail, and this has moved up a little bit. The last, of course, is completing the next slide, the update to the harbor management plan. And we hope to be able to, later this summer, present the update for review for approval by the state of Connecticut and adoption by the City Council. We've talked about this, and Deanna has reviewed sections of it. The DEP has reviewed the sections of it that are new sections, but we'd like to work with you to figure out what we might best put for those floodway properties. And the last slide is simply the acknowledgements of the commission members who volunteer their time to work on all this. So I hope I haven't talked too long and that you're still listening, but that's our brief overview of the harbor management plan and expression that we hope we can tie the two documents together, the POCD and the harbor management plan. They can each support each other and have help advance this vision that we have for the Norwich waterfront.
I think that's a terrific presentation, Jeff. Very nice job. Does anybody have any questions for Jeff?
Yeah,
No? Tucker?
I don't have any questions. This is Tucker.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no,
I guess, Frank,
think
Mike,
that was
if we, I'm sorry. I'm not,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, no.
I guess if we, maybe, I don't know, the next Harbor Commission meeting, but again, the goal is what do we do with those, not what do we do, but what is our vision for those two big properties that have been, you know, the subject and hope for redevelopment for many years? How can we, what should we do in terms of guidelines or recommendations for those two properties? And that's why we look forward to talking with you today. And one thought was maybe we could have a working group or a subcommittee with Deanna and Dan and you and Tucker and whomever to put our heads together to figure out how we address those properties in both plans. That's, again, I'll stop talking. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff. It's
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff. It's Deanna Rose here.
Thank you.
Can you
Thank you
hear
very
me?
much.
Can you guys hear me? It's
Deanna?
Deanna Rose.
Okay, you're on, Deanna?
Yeah, I am. I got on a couple minutes late. I'm sorry. I haven't been feeling well. So I want to respond to Jeff Stedman's comment. So the two properties that he's talked about, like basically the Terminal Way area and the area that's the old Shetucket Iron. We don't own the Shetucket Iron. That's private property. It's very hard for us to create a vision for private property without the ownership being involved in that. I just think that that's always a really tricky endeavor to do. You know, people do have property rights, and we have to be very careful about writing a plan with specifics in there saying that we're going to acquire it or we're going to clean it up. You know, so we have to be careful about that. And the same thing with Shipping Street. They're both in the floodway. They're not properties that we're going to be able to develop up as far as putting structures on those properties. So, and, you know, unofficially, you know, my discussions with council members in the past is that there's not a lot of consensus to purchase those properties and to spend money on those properties. So I don't know, the harbor management plan may, you know, at some point you may have to exclude those, Jeff, or just say, you know, work with the private property owners on developing those. I don't know if they're something that we're going to have a lot of control over. As much as it would be nice to do that, I don't know if we're going to have that.
Dan, this is Dr. Braddock speaking. You're right. These properties are owned by individual people, and we can't really tell them what to do with their properties. But I think that we can provide whatever incentives we can to help them solve their problems, because they really want to improve their properties, I'm sure, as well.
I don't necessarily disagree or agree with you on that. I'm kind of neutral. The impression I've got from many property owners on the Shipping Street side is we've reached out and offered them brownfields assessment grants and did all kinds of stuff with them, and there's just not a lot of participation. So I think that, you know, maybe the harbor management, like I said, plan has to be more very generic in the sense of what we're going to do there. I don't think we can make plans for private property with owners who don't want to sell to us, or their price is so exorbitant that the city is not going to purchase it. So we just need to be careful about how that's written in.
Yeah. Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, hey,
Deanna, this is, oh, sorry. This is Jeff, Deanna. And
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't think we were ever thinking about including recommendations for the city to purchase properties, but more what sort of redevelopment or master plan, you know, like your master plan of land use, what do you envision in the
Well,
future for being here? And some years ago, we had people from the planning department in New Haven. We had a meeting with them
Yep.
in the city hall in Norwich, and thinking about if this was to be developed, the individual property owners, of course, would do the redevelopment, but that we would plan ahead of time what the water dependent use might be, so that the property owners didn't have to deal with that. In other words,
okay, so I can give, Jeff, I can give you an update on that. So the city worked with UConn, and Dan can fill this in a little bit too, to work with one of their doctoral students and a couple of other students there on a sustainability project to have them look at both those two areas for the city. And their recommendations are, firstly, they didn't necessarily give us the complete reports because COVID happened. So we got sort of a incomplete product for them, and it didn't cost, city anything. So, and the students graduated, so we're not going to get an updated, we had revisions and we're not going to get anything of that. But because of speaking with FEMA and DEP, they don't really have positive recommendations about developing either of those for the owners because of the floodway. So we were hoping that they would come up with something that would assist us in changing our regulations, to using it for a tool that we could say, hey, they've done the footwork with the state, because we're not getting anywhere with the state. We thought maybe they would get, with UConn being involved, be able to get more feedback from them. But the feedback really was very generic of, my impression is not to develop those sites, that they shouldn't be developed because they're in the floodway. I think, Dan, do you want to comment on that at all?
No, I would just echo that. And it wasn't a very comprehensive report, but it wasn't anything that gives us a way to move forward.
Yeah, there was nothing to build off of there. That's what our plan was, Jeff, is to have some real technical support to go off of for land use, and without having that technical support saying that, yes, these uses would be good in the floodway there, and this is what the DEP would give us money to clean up if we were able to do those uses. We didn't get any of that positive feedback.
Right.
Deanna, this is Tucker speaking. There was some earlier comments, and I think from your office and NCDC about redesignating those properties so that the properties are there. Some of them are pretty structurally sound, that we could work with them on a little different basis if they were historical in their historical district, in an historical district.
So one of the things that we have talked about is potentially looking at both those sites as going to do either a historic, like on the Shetucket Iron site, going for historic designation on the National Register by itself, or looking for the Thames area of the city down there by Shipping Street and getting that into a National Historic District, because it takes away some of the requirements for a special flood hazard area. It doesn't eliminate it completely, but it does alleviate it a little. We have talked about going forward with a grant application to look into doing that, designating that as a historic district, and we're working with John Salamone to decide. We have about, 25 different proposals of what we could go for a grant from the state, and that was just one of the things on there, and John has them and considering the different proposals, of which he knows the goal of what we would do there, but it's not a set in stone that we would even get any of those necessarily on the, we need to hire a consultant that would agree that they should be in a historic district. And we don't know that that would happen either. So it's a little bit of a stretch, but we could pursue that. So that's, that's definitely on our radar right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Frank, this is Les King. Can I jump in for a second?
Sure, Les.
Yeah, the one thing that's been haunting us in this area for the last 20 years is the zoning on waterfront usage. It's got to be water dependent usage, especially in shipping area, the terminal way area. But come to find out, because the railroad tracks, once you go across the tracks, anything on the land side of those areas do not really legally require water dependent usage. And we've always had heated discussions on does it require water dependent usage or not, even going back to where all the condominiums that Mel Weiss put in down there. It was, does it require it or doesn't? Because as soon as you go across the railroad tracks, that's another whole piece of property. And I think that's been a point of confusion for at least a couple of decades. And I think that may be one area that we ought to clear up and really define what would require water dependent usage and what would not, because that's still unclear. And we've been doing this for about 20 years now. So I would recommend that we really take a look at that and define which pieces of property require water dependent usage. And I know the floodway is getting in the way of that now, and that's okay, but it's still a definition I think we really need to define so that people that are looking at the properties, looking to do something there, know exactly what the parameters are of what they are able to do.
Yes, sir. In fact, that was why, this is Jeff again, why we had the meeting years ago with the people from the New Haven Planning Department to discuss some ideas that we would define what the water dependent uses needed to be here. We're talking about the Shipping Street area at the time. So when the individual properties would be developed, and I guess now they can't be, but it would be worked out ahead of time what the water dependent uses would be. And pursuant to the Coastal Management Act, they don't necessarily have to include, you know, the docks and piers and so forth, but the water dependent uses can include public access amenities. Can
I chime in real quick? Do you mind if I?
Yeah, and Deanna, once we get through this, why don't we move on to the agenda, because we do want to do this in an hour.
Okay, yep. So I just wanted to say really quickly to Jeff that and to Les, we do have a good idea of what the water dependent uses are. We do. Our regulations are pretty clear about that. But the problem with both these sites is that they need cleanup. They are environmentally a mess, both of these sites. So that requires money, cleanup money. And the state, we're having a difficult time with the state, and even with having an interested marina to go in on one terminal way, we said we have a water dependent use. The marina wants to go there, and across the street on Shipping Street, they wanted to do their retail selling, and they wanted to repair in the existing buildings and blah, blah, blah. And the state DECD said, oh, that sounds great from the grant standpoint. And DEP said, no, they're not giving money for cleanup of environmental brownfields in floodways. So that's the problem. Neither of these sites are really ever going to be developed without someone having money themselves to do the brownfields cleanup. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. The state, the Department of Economic Community Development sees it as an economic driver, but DEEP does not think we should be cleaning up the areas and for redevelopment. They think that they should be, not necessarily left to be a mess, but they don't want to spend funds on cleaning up brownfield sites that are in floodways. So we have that conundrum to deal with. So that's something that maybe needs to go in your harbor management plan, is about dealing with the brownfield sites that are along our riverfront that make them very difficult to develop. I don't think when New Haven came up and did that, the floodway wasn't the same. It was prior to 2014. Right. And also the issues with the brownfields, the extent of the brownfield contamination on both these properties make them very expensive to develop.
So don't we need like some political muscle in Hartford to work on that issue then?
Absolutely, and I have been reaching out to the highest up people, and including like said the DECD head people there. Everybody, they're all pointing fingers. It's a pointing finger thing. So we might need, like I said, legislative people to be involved. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying when I say political. I mean the legislative people, like our senators and our state representatives to work on that.
Exactly. No, it's very, very frustrating because we had a wonderful application. We had an end user. We wanted money for cleanup, and that between the state departments, they said, they one said yes, the other said no, and DEP trumps DECD. So that was, didn't get the money. And so that's going to be an uphill battle. And that's why we asked UConn students and working with the sustainable group there is to say, hey, you guys do the work. You contact them. You have your deep, and say, what would you allow there? What would you allow them to clean up? And basically, it was nothing. It was almost, basically, we should retreat, like with what they want us to do, and not do anything there, and be basically in its natural habitat. And maybe that needs to go into the plan at some point, is that the development really isn't occur there economically, and it becomes some kind of an open space and green space for public access. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a big chunk.
All right. Well, I think we've beat this horse at the moment, and let's move on the agenda then.
Absolutely.
So, Dan, I think we kind of went out of order on that. Do you want to take it from there?
Well, I've got the pages up on the screen now. We did talk about quite a bit of things on the pages.
Yeah, so kind of, yeah.
Right.
So basically, Jeff's presentation kind of went through the aspects of the plan in that respect.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to talk about then as far as coastal resources or natural resources?
There's a number of things in the implementation tables, talking about, I can run through them quick if you'd like, and Deanna can chime in if she has anything to add.
Yeah, why don't you go through that quickly then, and let's see
Okay.
where we are
So,
on that.
on implementation tables, page 24, protect natural resources. The top priority was strive to preserve significant natural resources such as wetlands, watercourses, steep slopes, 100-year floodplains, and other areas. I think we've been working towards that all along. The last subdivision that was approved by the CCP has a 100-foot conservation area that the city council just the other night adopted. That's a steep slope area that's near the waterfront. It's in the CAM. Deanna has done extensive work on the brownfields and contaminated areas. I don't know if you have anything to add with that, Deanna, before we just move through the list.
No, not necessarily. That's where, like I said, we're with the EPA grant. We're, I think we've already had 19 task orders or something like that. So we're doing a lot of cleaning up with assessments of, not cleanup, assessments of brownfields, but we've also assisted Panema with getting their $200,000 assessment grant too. So, yep. So I think the redevelopment agency and our department is working diligently on looking at cleanup sites.
Okay. And then the next is continue efforts to improve water quality. I think between city staff and MPU staff, we've worked on that. It's kind of an ongoing effort. Maintain a program for periodic cleaning of storm sewers and drainage systems. That's a pretty routine public works operation. Actually, Chris LaRose is just signing in. I don't know. We may.
Is Chris on the line now?
Yeah.
Yes, I am on the line. I apologize for being extremely late.
No,
No
that's
problem.
okay, Chris. Now that you're here, we were just talking about the storm sewers, drainage, and septic management, and didn't know if you had any kind of report on that.
So storm sewers are Pat McLaughlin and Public Works.
Okay.
And
Chris,
Go ahead,
this is
Dan.
Dan.
yeah,
The
Dan.
one item before that was efforts to improve water quality.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So-
That's my mistake.
So we have submitted an updated long-term control plan with DEEP, and we met with them. We are expecting to start that project in 2021. So that's the sewer plant upgrade, and and that will have improvements to water quality in the harbor.
Okay.
So the first phase is upgrading the plant, and then we'll roll right into a wet weather train, and that takes all of the combined sewer overflows that go into the river and removes them from the river.
Chris.
Okay.
Tucker Braddock, what is the quality of the water in the river now?
So we did a very
Have a-
detailed study. It's been almost 10 years ago, Tucker. And
Yes.
the water quality is very good unless it's immediately after a large rainstorm. And for 72 hours, there's an increase in bacteria in the water. It's not all contributed by the plant, so it will not get completely cleaned up. When we put the plant in, a lot of that is upstream farm runoff and sewers, stormwater runoff as well.
Okay, thank you.
But we do have combined sewer overflows that happen whenever we have a significant rainstorm.
Dan, this is Jeff again. I'm sorry to interrupt, but what the comments just on the sewer plant upgrade are I think are very relevant to the harbor management plan update. The DEP asked that we include in the update a statement regarding just what was just mentioned. So I'm wondering if those plans could be provided to the Harbor Commission and that we could then reference them in our update to the harbor management plan.
Yep. So
that-
what I can do is I can get you a link to the latest submittal that we put in for the long-term control plan. And
Thank you.
would be happy to have Larry Sullivan or myself attend a meeting if you'd like to ask questions and provide information as to where we're going.
Thank you very much, because the DEP reviewer of the plan asked just that question. What's the status of your long-term control plan? Can you describe that in the harbor management plan? So that will be addressing that question that was asked of us by DEEP. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure
Okay.
internal and deep, they can have internal discussions as well once they know who is working on it and what's going on. So
Yeah. Yep.
our contact up there is Jennifer Perry, and and she, I'm sure internally, once they find out what we're doing, they can easily ask internal as well as us to what's going on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. So Dan, you want to keep going through that table then?
Sure. Number 5 is consider adopting a septic management ordinance to help protect water quality in rural areas. From as far as I know, we haven't done anything regarding that. That may be something we look at in the future. Is that correct, Deanna?
I agree with you. I don't believe we have that in place, and that we could talk to the Uncas Health District about that.
Right.
I was just going to say, Uncas Health District is who we ever deal with failed systems.
So the next one is make regulatory changes to ensure consideration of significant and important natural resources as part of reviewing development proposals. I think as at the staff level, we do that whenever we get a proposal in. We check with the databases we have and the GIS that we have and make sure that it's referred to the proper state agencies.
Absolutely. And we also go out in the field, and if there's significant trees or anything that we see, ledge outcrops that look like they're cool and that they shouldn't be disturbed, we make comments about that as well.
Right. On the list is seek ways to enable redevelopment of historic properties located in floodplain areas. We have active projects, or we're helping other entities working on that. That's kind of an ongoing effort as well. The final one on this page is address invasive species. I'm not aware of anything along that.
We haven't really done anything with that along the rivers and things, we probably should be looking at that at some point, but, we haven't. I don't think the city has taken any action on that since the plan has been adopted.
Okay. And then moving on to the next page, protect coastal resources. I think we pretty much touched on all this through the presentation, and obviously sea level rise is a long-term effort and a concern that involves multiple agencies. utilities, public works, and city staff, emergency management. The final page is mainly what the presentation touched on. So promote and preserve, additional public access, support dredging efforts, implement the Harbor Management Commission's vision and plan, and revisit the extent of the waterfront development zoning designation, which is all things that we talked about earlier at the meeting tonight.
Right.
Dan, did you mention Bill's email that he sent out to everybody, which is about them bringing the boat in? Did that get brought up yet in the meeting?
Frank
Dan
and I talked about it earlier. I don't remember if that before we started or not.
Yeah, no, I was going to just mention that, Deanna. That,
Okay.
Thank you.
So, but Dan, Bill Champagne sent an email out to a whole list of people. I think everybody who's here tonight, I don't know if everybody saw it today, but he asked to make mention of it because he couldn't attend tonight. And his, as I understand the email, he would like to explore the idea of dinner cruises and sightseeing trips with historic vessels, lunch dinner cruises type of thing in the harbor, maybe making use of an 18th century ship or replica steamers, something along those lines. And he thought that it would be something that would involve the Mohegan tribe and maybe dealing with them in connection with the Preston River Walk. And he asked or suggested that it might be an action item for the POCD to have a discussion with the Mohegan tribe and maybe talk about a feasibility study, perhaps using Sachem money. So that was Bill's idea, and I see the emails up on the screen now. So I just wanted to mention that since Bill was very interested in having that come to light tonight. So.
Hey,
Frank, this is Singh. I also have a question whenever there's a little time. I raise my hand. I don't know how this meeting is working, but usually in the other meetings, I just raise my hand.
Yeah. Well, I recognize you, Singh, and go ahead.
All right. Well, so not sure if they're really connected to this issue, but of course, the presentation was really well made and very informative. So my thing is, do we have any traffic count, like how many cars go by our marina or by the Howard Brown Park? Because, we already have that thing set up, and I'm not sure what's the status of the owner, because I remember last year, he was given a big push that, you got to put the fuel pumps in so people can fuel their things, and, you got to be back on track. But, there's a nice retail spot, and that could be used as well for something. So we need to see how we can promote more retail around our water areas, especially with the COVID-19, people love to have outdoor dinner and, so that's something I'm not really sure what's the status of that right now, or if anybody's working on those things.
Well, at the marina itself, there are two cookout places that, in order to have that marina a park, when Mr. Aliano set it up, it was designated that these two areas people could use without using the marina. They could just arbitrarily use these two cookout areas and have a gathering. I don't have a count of what the gathering can be now, but like for outdoor dinners, it can happen. And those are right at the marina.
Okay.
I know there's been talk about trying to get the Joyals moving and trying to get a restaurant in there. And I know Jason Vincent was talking with the folks down in Mystic from Go Fish to try to get something going, but I don't know what the status of that is at this point.
This is Tucker again. One thing that JP, when he was serving on the Harbor Commission, as the chair, he was trying to get a riverboat opportunity from Norwich down to the Sound as a evening cruise or as a destination, and that has a pretty good ring to it. And this is just to chime in with what Mr. Champagne is thinking about. There is
Yeah,
a
I think that's
riverboat.
what Bill wanted to talk about.
Yeah, there is a riverboat ferry that goes from Groton over to New London, and that's become quite successful as a destination for people who do not have a boat, who want to ride back and forth. And if we could talk with those people maybe and have them come up the Thames River and dock at Howard Brown Park, it would be a longer ride and more of a destination for people who don't get out into the country, who live in a city. And and these boats have all been donated by the Navy and refurbished by people in New London, and doing quite a nice job with it.
Okay.
Yeah, Frank, this is Les King. Can I jump in there for a second?
Sure, Les, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Tucker. It was about 15 or 17 years ago when J.P. Marine was the chairman of the Harbor Commission. There was an analysis done on harbor cruises and the financial analysis and the ship analysis and how many, to make it feasible, how often do you have to turn over the tables, and then just a tremendous amount of work was done on the finances of it. And I would recommend, before we try and pull money out of the Sachem Fund or something else, to look at another needs grant. I would recommend that we go back and look at that package, because that has already been done. Of course, in today's world, it's a little bit different, but I think that work is already done. It would just be an update of that. And I think that would be the prudent thing to do, is to look at historically where we came from on that.
That makes sense, Les. Do we know who has that study now?
I know John Paul Marine is the one that was chairman. I think, and Jeff, you may know about that too. You were on the harbor, very involved too. But
I've got it someplace. I'll have to find it, but I know I have a copy.
Okay, outstanding. That's great.
I'll try to find it. I just can't find it immediately, but I certainly remember exactly what you're talking about, and I forget.
Maybe you could get a copy, Jeff. Maybe you could get a copy to Dan and Deanna, and we could spread it around.
I'm going to search for it on Friday. But
that'd be great.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Well, we're getting close to an hour here, so unless there's something else that we need to talk about, I think note that the next meeting is scheduled for September 9th, and regarding sustainability and agriculture and ecological sustainability. Unless we have any other discussions that we need to take place. Dan or Deanna, anything else that you think needs to come out?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're all
good,
set.
Dan?
Yep.
Okay, so in that case, I'd accept a motion to adjourn at this point, and thank everybody who came tonight for their participation. I thank Jeff again for his presentation, which was excellent. And again, at this point, I think we're ready for an adjournment if we can get a motion.
Motion to move. Tucker Braddock.
Okay, so we have a
it.
motion by Tucker,
Same.
seconded by Singh. It's unlike, and since that's non-debatable, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, so the meeting's adjourned. Thank you again, all of you, and Jeff particularly.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Night,
Thanks
everyone.
for
Thank
your
you.
effort
Thanks,
in putting
Jeff.
that together. All right. Good night, all.